Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I've read so far this year. So we're going to talk about all the books that I've read from January through the end of March. Today is actually March 31st, so it's the end of the month already, which is insane. And I didn't realize, but it's the end of the first quarter of the year, which is wild. So I do have a hard time keeping up with monthly TV or monthly wrap-up videos, so I might do like quarterly wrap-up videos. I do have a hard time with wrap-ups because I don't want it to feel like I'm reiterating things that I've said in like previous videos or like vlogs or something. So if I talk about a book that I've read and included in a vlog, we'll kind of just like be brief about it, and then that way we're not like saying the same things over and over and over again. So if you are curious about any of those books, definitely check out those vlogs. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I am actually on call right now for work, so there's a chance that I'll get called in while we're filming this video and I'll have to wrap it up tomorrow when I'm off, but hopefully I don't, and we'll be able to get through all these books. These are all the books that I read in January. I started my month reading Alchemized by Sin Yu. I don't know, I feel like this book is talked about so much, I don't want to say things, but basically overall this is like an absolute must read, regardless if you like Harry Potter, regardless if you feel any type of way about the franchise. Like, this book is completely and separately its own, and even though it was based off of like the fan fiction, she was able to create the like very unique characters and still put like a twist on the story. So it was definitely fresh. It wasn't something that was just like rewritten, like copied and pasted from the original that it was based off of. So I definitely really loved it. Absolutely look into trigger warnings and stuff, because this is based on like a dystopian society where, you know, women are basically like sold for breeding and to make this like higher society, and like, yeah, just a lot of different things that I would definitely look into before you read this, and prepare yourself for an emotional journey. I'm not going to talk about these in order of like how I read them. I'm just going to pull them off the top of the stack. The next book that I read is The Summer War by Naomi Novik, and this is a cute little novella that I really love the cover. I think her books have some of the cutest covers. I love the new cover of Uprooted, which is another book by her that I absolutely adored and like took me by surprise. I read that last year. But yeah, so this is like a cute little story. I think it might be a fairy tale retelling, but I don't know for sure. But it was definitely like very fairy tale-esque. It was really cute. You're basically just following our female main character as she's kind of like going on this journey to save like her brother, and it was just really sweet. The next book in the stack is A Magnificence of Death by Ray Rainwater. I really loved this book. This was giving me this Invisible Life of Addie LaRue vibes. It was very much like that, but definitely had a twist to it. From what I remember, it's you're following this girl who is cursed with immortality. She has this ability to bring back the dead, and she's being followed by death, and he's basically like rivaling with her, being, you know, upset because anytime that she brings somebody back from the dead, he has to take somebody else's life that wasn't meant to die. And so they're just like battling kind of with each other over these like years, I want to say like decades or centuries, and you get to meet different characters, or like, I guess you could say almost gods of other things. So like, he's the god of death, fate, you get to meet fate and like things like that, and it just made it really interesting, and they all have personalities, and I don't know, it was just like really good. If you liked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I think you definitely need to check this out. I've seen a review by one of my friends who, she liked it, but she didn't love it because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is better to her. For me though, I really appreciated it for what it was. I wouldn't give it 5 stars, but I'll give it like 4.5 stars for getting picky. And yeah, overall the story was just like really heartwarming, and you get to see our character evolve through the story. And I don't know, you're like looking from her perspective, like she's doing everything because she thinks it's the right thing to do, but she's battling, kind of like learning that maybe it's not actually the right thing to do. It might be more selfish than it is beneficial for everybody else. So I don't know, it's just like really interesting and very touching for sure. And then the last thing that I read in January was this series, where is it? A Tongue So Sweet and Deadly. I think this is called the Compelling Fates Saga by Sophia St. Germain. Now the series was very, very hyped, like super hyped at the end of the year last year. And I saw so many reviews saying, oh no, it's fine guys, everybody's okay. But yeah, so I saw so many reviews that this was comparable to Throne of Glass, like God tier, and just like absolutely incredible, and was like really giving Aelin vibes. And so obviously like I had to check it out, and I did buy and read the entire series back to back, and I have not done that with a series since reading like Throne of Glass or like a Sarah J Maas series. So I think that says something to its ability to like capture my attention and be really entertaining, but it definitely did not have the substance that I was expecting. Like I definitely still feel like it was very surface level. Like it could have gone way, way, way deeper, but like expanded the world more and the plot more and the story more. But I really feel like we kind of stayed on the surface level. Although it was super, super interesting and had a lot of unique like elements to it, and I do, for some reason, just am picturing like a lot of sea voyages and like on like ships and like battles on the ocean and stuff like that. And that's totally my vibe. I love those types of stories. So if you like that, maybe you will enjoy this. And it was just so easy to read. Like this was so digestible and so easy. So like I would 100% recommend this to you if you are getting into fantasy or getting into romantasy and really want like a bingeable series or something that's easy with like not a whole lot of like world building or complicated politics or anything like that. This is 100% like one of the best series for that, in my opinion. So definitely check this out. It's also on Kindle Unlimited, so that is a huge plus, especially for somebody who doesn't want to buy like a bunch of books and have them in their house and have to move them around and carry them around because it's a lot of work. But yeah, this was a good series. I think overall I gave it like a 3 to a 4 star or something. Like it was definitely good, but it was not what I was expecting. And I think that that's why I enjoyed it less. I think if I would have gone in not hearing those reviews, I think I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. So those are all the books that I read in January. So let's dive into the ones that I read in February, which I think is actually kind of funny. These are all the books that I read in February. And as you can see, I binged a whole other series, which I just said I haven't done that in years, for so long, and I don't know why. I think what happens is that I just get kind of, I don't know, not bored of being in the world, but like I just need a little something to like light a fire under my butt again or something, or almost just the satisfaction of finishing like a little teeny tiny book, which is what I did actually when I was reading this series. This book is called Tinkers by Paul Harding. I picked this up because I really loved the cover at first. It had obviously a Pulitzer Prize award, which now I'm learning really doesn't mean anything for me. I can either love or hate a book that has any type of award. It doesn't really change anything for me usually, but basically this was like a story about an old man. I think he was on his deathbed, I can't remember, but he basically is like thinking back on his life and thinking about things that he would change or experiences that he's had and people that like he's talked to and stuff. And I just love reflection stories like that. So I just really wanted to pick it up. It was really short and super easy. I'm pretty sure I read this in like one sitting. And that was just like kind of a little refresh before I dive back into the massive series that I read. And then I also picked up 9 Goblins by T. Kingfisher. I love her novellas so much. They're always so much fun and just goofy. And she always has like really cute artwork in her stories. But yeah, this was just literally just a goofy story about some goblins who were, you know, just out in the wilderness doing their goblin things. Like I think they were going to war or something, and then end up meeting an elf, and this elf like portals them into another realm, I think, and are just bebopping around with all these goblins, just having a grand old time. And it was just like really funny and cute. And she always does have like a little bit of a point to her stories. Like there's always some type of arc that you're supposed to kind of take away from it, or not even arc, I don't even know the right word, but some type of point that like you're supposed to take away from it, like a little life lesson that you're supposed to learn from it. And yeah, they're just entertaining little stories, and I always love them. So this was a really fun read. If you like those kinds of stories or any of her other books, like definitely try it out. Don't hold back on that one. And then we'll get into the series that I read, which you've probably heard me talk about this already if you've been around for a little while. And this is the Mages of the Wheel series. This is a Kindle Unlimited series that I found years and years ago when I first started like exploring romantasy and stuff. And I had it on my Kindle for a really long time, but I like downloaded it on my Kindle when I was reading through the Sarah J Maas books. So I really just didn't get to it. And then by the time I finished like ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, and then Crescent City, because I read them back to back, I was like already 100 books deep in my TBR. So it just kind of like got lost in the noise, I think. And then I recently bought the physical copy when I moved to Texas 2 years ago, and it's just been sitting on my shelf for 2 years. And I bought it because I thought it would give me more like motivation to pick it up versus reading on my Kindle, because I'm not really like a Kindle girly. Like, I really don't enjoy reading on my Kindle over a physical book, at least. And so long story short, it was sitting on my shelf for like 2 years, and I finally picked it up because it was staring at me, and the description of it really sounded interesting to me still after like however long it's been. And clearly I really enjoyed it, and I read all of the rest of the books, and I bought all the rest of the books, which is also saying something. There are 5 books here. 4 of them are like in the series, and then the first one is a prelude, which I actually read last. Also, like the artwork on these books are really pretty, and I follow the author now, and it looks like her friend actually did all of the art for these, and my favorite is actually this one. This is a series that's following this really cool like Ottoman Empire inspired world, and in the first book you get introduced to our female main character Naim, who, I hope that's how you say her name, but it's Naime, so I'm assuming it's Naim. She's the daughter of the Sultan, who's like essentially the king, so she's the princess, and you're in her point of view, and she's like in this empire with all the rulers, and she's like going to all these delegations and meetings and stuff, and nobody really respects the women or her opinion or anything, so she has to work really hard to basically defend her spot as the heir, because she is going to be the sultana. That's like what her dream is and what her father wants her to be, so she has to like play all of the court games and just be like really intelligent, and she's like what I would aspire to be in that type of situation, you know, just like strong, confident, badass, smart, wise, just plays the games and does it so well. And she obviously has a soft side for a guy that she ends up meeting, and it was just like a really beautiful story the way that she did it. He was like a prince coming in from another land that they've been kind of like at odds with, and that all kind of like happens in the first book. They end up having a romance and all of those things, and it kind of just like goes on from there, but you're following the different couple for each book, which I think is really fun, and you kind of meet everybody in each book. And then this first one is like the prequel following her father and his romance story, and kind of why some things like a villain origin story and stuff like that in this one. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed reading that. So yeah, beautiful romance. She does her romance so well, and it's just so endearing, and like you just fall in love with her character so much. And even like the villain, you're almost made to feel bad for him, but you still have like such strong feelings for him. I don't know, it's just, I think she's just a really talented author to be able to like pull out those emotions and stuff. And I haven't even talked about the magic system, which is kind of like the main part of this. Basically the magic system is like a very classic elemental wind, earth, fire, and then like mental magic or like mental control. Really classic, but also unique in the way that they're able to utilize their magic and how they have to like connect with it and stuff. And you watch a lot, or I felt like I was watching a movie when I was reading these books. Clearly you get to see a lot of like training scenes and stuff, and just made it really entertaining to like read the whole series back to back. So I'm very happy that I picked it up. I can't believe, and I'm really upset that I waited that long to like actually pick up the book, but I am glad that I finally did, and that I didn't end up passing it up, because it was 100% worth my time. Let's talk about the last books that I read in March. March was a really good reading month for me. I'm very happy that I was able to like really pick back up the pace, because since I started working full-time last year in August, I really had to like cut back on my reading time, and I mean, that's totally fine. Like that is what it is. I wasn't like stressed out about it or anything, but it just, you know, I was just like longing to get to all the books on my shelf, and I just wasn't able to read and explore as many of them as I wanted to. But I did end up going part-time in March, so now I'm working twice a week instead of 3 times a week for a lot of different reasons, but it just kind of opened up a little bit more time for me to read. And then also I did my 24-hour reading challenge, which I mean, I'm just like cramming books in one day. So I just read a little bit more than I normally do. So I actually have a sticky note on this top book because I already donated this, or didn't donate, but I sold it at Half Price Books already. It's called Once We Were Wolves. I'll put the picture up here. And I've had this book also on my TBR, kind of the same as Reign and Ruin, where it was added on my Kindle like years ago, and I never really had the money to just buy it on Amazon. So just sitting on my Kindle forever. It's probably actually still on my Kindle, and never got around to it until I found it at the thrift store like a few months ago actually. And I was like, well dang, I guess that's my sign, because it had really good reviews, and I ended up reading it and listening to it. I kind of like combined it, and I did not love it. I didn't hate it either. I didn't think it was a bad book, but it was just kind of like, I didn't really care, to be honest, about like the story, like what was happening. By the end of it, I actually DNF'd it, like it was like 90% in. Like I really truly didn't even care about what happened at the end, and so I just stopped reading it. I was just like, I really just don't care. Like, why am I continuing to do this if I don't want to actually follow through with it? So I did DNF it technically, but I was already like 90% of the way through with it. So yeah, that I brought to Half Price Books recently and bought some more books that I am very excited about. But I did read that. I don't think it's a bad book. I think that I can see why people would like it. Probably, and obviously I'm just not the reader for that book. Next book that I read was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and this book I read because my husband really wanted me to read it. I did talk about this in my reading blog recently. This book was the only book that he read last year. He's very happy and very excited that he read a book, and so was I. And so he was very excited to go watch a movie after he had read a book, because he's never been able to do that before. He's always watched the movies before. So he wanted to like be cute and have a little experience with me. So I hadn't read it yet. Sci-fi is not really my genre, but I did read it. I loved it. It was great. It's really cute. It's sci-fi still though, in space, and that's just not really like my cup of tea, so to say. I don't really enjoy being out in space. I don't know what it is about me, but it's just kind of like not my thing. So I can definitely appreciate the story and appreciate the characters and stuff. Like, they were phenomenal, and I know why people love this so much, but it's just not a book that like I'm going to pick up again. Like, I'm not gonna go look for his other books because they're all out in space too, but I do really love his characters, and the way that he created that world was really, really sweet. So it was fun to read this and go watch the movie with my husband and all of that. I did read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I read this in my 24-hour reading challenge, so if you're curious about my thoughts on that, definitely go watch that video. I love this book. 5-star. Honestly, 6-star book. And I'm so surprised, honestly, that I'm saying that, because for whatever reason, like, before I read it, I would just look at the cover and be like, you know, God, or what are they? I think she's an orc. Is she an orc? An orc warrior. I don't know, it just reminds me of like Shrek, and Shrek for some reason just gives me the ick. Don't come at me, but Shrek gives me the ick. And I think it's just, I just don't like orcs. Maybe I'm scarred from watching Lord of the Rings growing up, but I just was not expecting it to be so human, I think. And it was amazing. It was lovely. It was gorgeous. It was a beautiful story. And it was just so purely good. I loved his writing style. So I do have the rest of this little series, and I'm going to read it soon, hopefully. Whenever I just need like a warm hug, I will pick up those books. But yeah, now I'm in the crowd that loves that book and gives it like 6-star. So I will always recommend that to people, because I think everybody would love it. The next book that we can talk about is Dawn of the North by Demi Winters. This is the technically the third book in the Road to Bone series, or the Ashen series. I read this recently and finished it, and for whatever reason, it was just taking me like a long time to get through it. And I think the beginning was a lot of recap, a lot of relearning the characters and re-understanding like the plot and what was going on in the background, because it had been a while since the last book came out and I read it, and there's a lot of backstory and stuff going on in the back of this book, and I think that kind of took away my ability to like really enjoy it. And then I was also just like not really able to read it very quickly too, so it's just kind of like felt a little draggy to get through it. But overall I did enjoy it. The ending was very good. I'm curious to see what the next couple books are going to be like, because it did definitely feel like one of those middle of the series books that's just kind of like full of a lot of politics and story building and stuff like that, with not a whole lot of like new actiony things going on. But like I said, the end of this book was very good. The next couple books I read in my 24-hour reading challenge as well. Daggermouth, I started this and almost finished it in my 24-hour reading challenge, and obviously this book is going around a lot. There's a lot of discourse about it. And at first I was like, this is not it, this is not for me. I did not really enjoy it, and that's fine. This is like a dystopian romance with like the feels of the Hunger Games, but like add guns and like assassins and rebels and underground like tunnels and yeah, I don't know. I almost felt like I was reading like in a Walking Dead type of scene, like world, but with rebels and then like really bad rich people. And then this like romance that kind of just like happened out of nowhere and didn't really seem very believable to me personally. I think I just needed a little bit more substance from the characters, like the main characters. I needed more substance from them to believe their romance. The other side characters though, like their romance was beautiful. I really loved it. And I think it's just because we got more of their like background first before we saw them kind of come together. And then the overall story ended really well for me. Like I really did enjoy the last like scene where things kind of got wrapped up because of like the way that she did it and kind of like how our women in the story took control and set the stage for everything. So I did enjoy that. I definitely feel like this author is a girl's girl. Yeah, I'm curious to see where it's gonna go from here. I don't know if I would pick up the second book. I mean, there's gotta be a second book, right, with the way it ended. I don't know if I would pick it up, but I think I'll see. Whenever it comes out, I'll reevaluate and see if that's something that I would want to do. But I can see myself probably picking it up, but we'll see. The next book that I read in the 24-hour reading challenge was Throne of Nightmares by Carrie Maniscalco, and I love this book so much. It was so cute. And I also I'm so obsessed with that interior. I just can't stop looking at it. I'm really tempted to like frame it or something somehow. I don't know. But this book was just really cute. It was definitely written for the book lovers and had a lot of like little cute references and stuff for book readers and book lovers and romance lovers, and it was just really fun. It was very classic Carrie Maniscalco like storyline where it's the Prince of Sloth and he is having to go on this trek and on this mission to basically save his realm, and he meets a girl along the way and they fall in love and they have to like go through these trials and stuff to like save his realm. I did really enjoy it. This wasn't my favorite out of the series so far, but it was really cute, really good. I loved it for like what it was made to be, you know? It's not supposed to be anything crazy. The next book that I read was Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I think I talked about this in my reading vlog, very briefly though. I mean, like I said then, like there's really not a whole lot else to say. Like it kind of is what it is. You don't really get much more than that. It's a cute, short little like horror novella, and I think you're supposed to like look and see, or you're just supposed to kind of like see the way that our main character's turned into like some type of beetle or something, and he wakes up and his family's kind of like alienating him, and you know, people treat him differently, obviously, and you're supposed to kind of just like see his interactions with other people because he's different. And yeah, it was just like, it was entertaining. It was kind of gross. It was basically just all that I had expected from that book. The next book that I read was Guild by Raven Kennedy, and I also talked about this in my reading vlog, and I had some mixed feelings on this book. Thinking back on it now, I'm just like looking more into like why I was feeling so just put off by the background of our female main character and King Midas, and why like that was making me feel so strongly about it. I cut a lot out of the reading vlog like discourse about this book just because I wasn't really sure. I don't think I like really put my thoughts together very well about that. I wanted to think about it more. Like I wanted to have more of a well thought out reaction to this book versus like an emotional reaction to it. Yeah, so thinking back on it, I think it was a good book. I think it was actually a really, really good fantasy book. It had a really fun, engaging like storyline, and I would love to continue the series because of that. It's very interesting. For some reason, I don't know, maybe it triggered me. I don't know, maybe that's what it was. I didn't go into it knowing any of the trigger warnings, and there was like underage relationships in this book, and like manipulation and grooming and stuff, and that just really triggered something in me for some reason. Yeah, I don't know, I was just like really battling with my thoughts on that book for some reason. So I'm still sitting on it, still deciding whether or not I want to continue the series or not, because I did really enjoy it, like I said, and I would love to follow the story, but I think I might just need a little bit more time stepped away from that book and that series before I continue. The next book that I read was My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I talked about this also in the reading vlog. I annotated this book. I absolutely adored this book. I'm not going to talk anymore about it because I have nothing else to say. It is phenomenal, 6-star, one of my favorites by him, and I will cherish that book and that story forever. The next book that I read was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I read this in my 24-hour reading challenge, and this was also just a wonderful, wonderful story. You're basically following these girls at this home for wayward girls in like rural Florida. These girls are sent there because they basically get pregnant outside of a marriage. And so basically they're like shunned from society. Their families don't want them to be seen in society because it's like this abomination. This is like, I think the 70s or something. And it just like was not accepted and very shunned. So these girls are basically sent to this house in the middle of nowhere with these people that they don't know, and other girls who are like pregnant also, and have to live there until they have their baby, and then they go back home like nothing happened, and the babies get adopted out or whatever. And so yeah, you're following this girl who's in that situation. You learn about, you know, her history, what happened, and she basically gets there and finds out that they're all the same kind of person. They're all the same young girl that just needed some like education, and they're not bad people. And then there's also this like element of actual like witchcraft and stuff. While they're in the home, they meet these people who, it's actually a librarian that comes to the house. Our main character gets given a book by her which has witchcraft in it, and so her and the girls are like doing witchcraft and stuff, and it kind of turns a little thrillery at the end. Like you get a little bit of like thriller vibes at the end. Wait a minute, was that the last book? Oh my gosh, that was the last book. That was the last book. I do want to talk about the books I'm reading right now. So currently I'm reading 2 books, which is really strange for me. I usually only read 1 book at a time because I get them way too mixed up. But I'm currently reading Wuthering Heights. I started this, I want to say maybe a week ago. And I'm probably about this much through. I'm about probably 80% of the way through this so far. And I don't know how I'm feeling about this book, guys. Like, it's definitely a very gothic book. It is following like this toxic relationship, and it's not a love story like many of you warned me about. This is not really a healthy love story, and it's not happy. And I don't know, I'm just reading it and I'm just absorbing it. I don't really have thoughts, like no thoughts, just kind of just it is what it is. I kind of expected it to kind of feel this way a little bit, kind of like fever dreamish. And now I'm in the 2nd volume where we're kind of like following the descendants of our main characters, and just like seeing them grow up and how they are. So no thoughts so far, but like we'll talk about it I think when I'm finished and I have like a fully well-rounded review of that book. And then the other book that I'm reading is Game of Thrones. And guys, I am reading this so slow. There's not even actually chapter numbers, but I'm at page 152. I'm reading this so slow, and I'm just like, I don't know, loving every second of it. I'm absorbing every single word. So let me give you some background. We watched the whole show, the Game of Thrones show. We binged it in like a month. We binged all however many seasons, 8 seasons or something in a month. And it took over our entire lives, took over my mind. I was still am honestly in a massive Game of Thrones hangover. And so I just needed to read the book. I needed to be back in the world, and I needed to be back with these characters and get that feeling again. And just like the investment that you get from reading this series is you just feel like you know everyone. And like, it was just really crazy that I felt that way, because that was actually the 2nd time that I watched the show. I had watched all the way up until the last season, and I didn't watch the last season. And then me and my husband, it was his first time watching it, so we watched it all the way through together. And so I got to watch the last season recently, and I'm not going to talk at all about the last season because I know there are so many negative thoughts on that, but I personally liked it. I thought it made sense. It was good, but I do know that the way that George Martin's going to actually finish the series is going to be different than the way that they finish the show. So that'll be kind of cool if we ever get that book. But yeah, I'm just reading it honestly for the vibe so that I can just be back in the world and kind of cure my hangover, because ever since actually, like, I've had a hard time picking up another book that's not this. Like, I tried to pick up Riftborn, which is in my March TBR. The only couple, like the 2 books that I had left on my March TBR was Riftborn and Dustbound, and I did try and pick up Riftborn. I read like 2 or 3 chapters and I couldn't read it. I only could think about this, and yeah, it was just not happening. So I ended up picking this up instead. And I am actually like so in love with these little mass market paperbacks, because they're not like your regular paperback or mass markets that are, oh, hey buddy boy. Actually, he's readjusting in the chair. You're so cute. But yeah, they're not like your regular mass market paperbacks that are like super crunchy and stiff. Like these, the papers are really thin and kind of like silky, almost like one of those like little mini Bibles that you get. So it makes it really easy to like carry around. It's not too heavy. It's really easy to like bend. It's not uncomfortable to read or anything. And the words are like a manageable size. And so for me, that's nice because I'm blind and I need to have massive words to read books. So yeah, those are all the books that I've read so far this year. I am going to start my April TBR hopefully soon this week. I don't know if I'm going to try and finish Game of Thrones first before I jump into any of those, but I already have a buddy read set up with Sierra I'm very excited about, and I'm just like really excited to have like a very wide range of genres for April. So definitely stick around. We'll do another wrap up video at some point and we'll talk about all those books as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for watching all the way through if you have, and I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful week and weekend, and I will see you guys in the next video next Saturday. Bye guys.